They say a parent's love is unconditional. It's a beautiful sentiment, the kind of thing you see embroidered on a throw pillow. But I'm here to tell you that love, even a mother's love, has its limits. It has a breaking point. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 73 years old, and I discovered that breaking point on the evening of my 70th birthday. It was supposed to be a celebration of a life well lived. My late husband, Richard, and I had built an empire from nothing. Vance Industries wasn't just a company. It was a testament to 45 years of shared dreams, sleepless nights, and a partnership forged in steel and trust. Richard had been gone for 5 years, and the silence in our sprawling Boston home was a constant, aching presence. But I had my daughter, Amelia. My beautiful, brilliant, ambitious Amelia. The party was a lavish affair at the Fairmont Copley Plaza. I've never been one for ostentatious displays, but Amelia insisted. "Mother, a woman of your stature needs to celebrate in style," she'd said, her voice dripping with the kind of practiced charm that could sell ice in a blizzard. She'd handled all the arrangements, which, I later realized, was her first strategic move. Every vendor, every bill, was routed through the Vance Family Legacy Trust, the very fund Richard and I had painstakingly established to ensure our family's future for generations. That night, I wore a deep emerald gown that matched the emerald necklace Richard had given me on our last anniversary. I watched Amelia, resplendent in silver, flitting between guests like a hummingbird, her husband, Liam, a handsome and toothy shadow at her side. He was a real estate developer with more ambition than capital, and he'd latched onto Amelia like a remora to a shark. I saw the way he looked at her, or rather, through her, at the vault of generational wealth she represented. After the toasts and the polite applause, Amelia guided me to a quiet alcove overlooking Copley Square. The city lights twinkled like a carpet of fallen stars. "Mother," she began, her tone serious, "the party is wonderful, truly." "You did a marvelous job, darling," I said, patting her hand. It's a reminder of all you've achieved, of the legacy." She paused, taking a delicate sip of her champagne. "Which brings me to my gallery." Ah, yes. Gallery Amelia. Her passion project. A monumentally expensive venture in the chicest part of the South End, designed to showcase avant-garde artists. The trust had already allocated a staggering $3 million for its launch. I had my reservations. Amelia knew far more about spending money than earning it. But I'd supported her. I wanted her to have a purpose, something to call her own. "The final invoices are coming in," she said, avoiding my gaze. "The Italian marble for the flooring, the security systems. There have been some unforeseen overages. Liam and I were looking at the numbers, and we're going to need another $1.5 million from the trust to ensure the opening is as spectacular as it needs to be." I felt a familiar tightening in my chest. It wasn't the amount. A drop in the ocean, really. It was the casual, entitled way she asked, as if she were requesting I pass the salt. Richard had a saying, "Money is a tool, Eleanor. In the right hands, it builds. In the wrong hands, it destroys." "Amelia," I said softly, $3 million was the agreed-upon budget. A good business person learns to operate within their means. Perhaps you could scale back on some of the non-essentials?" Her face, so beautifully composed moments before, hardened. The charm evaporated, leaving behind a petulant glare I hadn't seen since she was a teenager. "Non-essentials? Mother, you don't understand. This isn't some hobby. This is my brand, my reputation. Do you want me to be a laughingstock? To open with cheap flooring and second-rate security? What would people say about the Vances? I'm more concerned with what your accountants will say about fiscal responsibility," I countered, my voice still even. "Fiscal responsibility?" she scoffed, her voice rising. Liam had drifted over, placing a proprietary hand on her shoulder. This, from the woman who lives in a house the size of a hotel and wears a fortune around her neck. Don't lecture me about money you didn't even earn. Dad earned it. The words struck me like a physical blow. Richard and I had been a team. I was the one who managed the books, who negotiated the early contracts while he handled the engineering. I had worked just as hard, bled just as much for that company. Amelia, that is deeply unfair and untrue, I said, my voice trembling slightly. Oh, is it? You've been sitting on that fortune like a dragon on a hoard of gold ever since Dad died. You control everything. The trust, the company, my future. I have to come to you like a child begging for an allowance. Her voice grew louder, venomous. I'm 42 years old. I shouldn't have to ask for what is rightfully mine. The only thing standing between me and my own life is you and your miserly grip on everything. Tears of frustration and rage welled in her eyes. I reached out to her, a mother's instinct, but she recoiled. I stood there in my emeralds, surrounded by the cacophony of a party meant to honor me, feeling utterly stripped bare by my own child. I looked at her, at the daughter I had rocked to sleep and nursed through fevers, the girl whose scraped knees I had bandaged and whose teenage heartbreaks I had mended. I saw a stranger, a cold, grasping stranger wearing her face. What is it you truly want, Amelia? I whispered, the question hanging in the chilled air between us. She let out a bitter, ugly laugh. Her perfectly painted lips curled into a sneer. What do I want? For my birthday, you want to know what the best gift would be. She leaned in close, her breath smelling of champagne and malice. The best gift would be if you just died. The world went silent. The music, the chatter, the clinking of glasses, it all faded into a dull, roaring vacuum. She didn't just say it. She willed it. In her eyes, I saw my own mortality not as a future event, but as a current inconvenience to her. I wasn't her mother. I was an obstacle. My life was the lock on a safe she was desperate to crack open. Liam's expression didn't change, not a flicker of shock or disapproval. He just stood there, his hand on her shoulder, a silent, smiling co-conspirator. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something inside me, something warm and maternal that had burned for 42 years, simply went cold. It turned to ice, then to granite. In that moment, the love didn't become conditional. It simply ceased to exist. I turned without a word, walked through my own birthday party, and didn't look back. The chauffeur, a kind man named Robert, who had been with us for years, saw my face and simply opened the car door. On the silent ride home, a plan began to form. A cold, precise, and intricate plan. Amelia wanted her inheritance. I decided she would get exactly what she deserved. The next morning, I called Arthur Pendleton. Arthur had been Richard's lawyer, his best friend, and one of the few people I trusted implicitly. He was a portly man with a mind like a steel trap and a bulldog's loyalty. He arrived at my house within the hour, his face etched with concern. Eleanor, I heard you left the party early. Is everything all right? I poured him a coffee, my hands perfectly steady. I recounted the conversation with Amelia, word for verbatim word. When I finished, Arthur's face was pale. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. A gesture I knew meant he was profoundly disturbed. That's monstrous, he finally breathed. It was clarifying, I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. It showed me the truth. I have been funding a fantasy. The loving daughter, the grateful heir. She doesn't exist. In her place is a parasite, and I am the host. What do you want to do, Eleanor? Richard and I built that trust to nurture, to build, to create a legacy of responsible stewardship. It was never meant to be a treasure chest for a spoiled child to plunder for her vanity projects. I want to cancel the funding. Arthur nodded slowly. We can halt any further disbursements for the gallery immediately. I'll cite a review of the trust's fiduciary duties. No, Arthur, I said, leaning forward. That's not enough. A slap on the wrist won't teach her anything. She'll throw a tantrum, wait me out, and assume I'll eventually crumble. I don't want to just stop the flow. I want to reverse it. I want to dismantle her. She wished me dead for my money. I'm going to show her what it's like to have her world die while she's still very much alive. A flicker of something, alarm, or perhaps admiration, crossed Arthur's face. What do you have in mind? The gallery opening is in 6 weeks. It's all she talks about, the cornerstone of her social standing. By then, she and Liam will have spent every last dime of the initial $3 million and racked up considerable debt, assuming the next payment is coming. I want you to find out who every single one of her creditors is. The contractors, the designers, the security firm, the caterers for the opening night gala. I want to buy their debt. Arthur's eyebrows shot up. Buy their debt? Eleanor, that's aggressive. I'm 73, Arthur. I don't have time for subtlety. I want to own every single financial obligation tied to that gallery. And the building itself. They're leasing it. Correct? Yes. From a commercial property group. Find out who owns that group. I don't care what it costs. I want to buy the building. For the next 6 weeks, Arthur and I operated like a clandestine 2-person army. Through a series of discreet shell corporations, we went to work. It was surprisingly easy. Many of the contractors were small businesses who were happy to be paid in full immediately by an anonymous investor, selling the debt at a tiny discount. They had no idea they were now owed money by a holding company I controlled. The real prize was the building. It was owned by Sterling Properties, a mid-sized firm. Arthur, through a proxy, made them an offer they couldn't refuse, 30% above market value, all cash, close in 10 days. They bit. Within 3 weeks, I was, through 2 layers of corporate anonymity, Amelia's landlord. During this time, I maintained complete silence. Amelia called, of course. First, angry, demanding to know why I'd left my own party. Then, wheedling, trying to apologize in that superficial way of hers. Mother, you know I get dramatic when I'm stressed. I didn't mean it. Finally, panicky messages started coming in. The trust administrator said the next transfer is on hold pending a review. What is that about? Mother, you have to call him. The marble supplier is threatening to walk. I didn't answer a single call. I let her twist in the wind. Liam left messages too, his voice oozing a false concern that made my skin crawl. Eleanor, we're all so worried about you. Amelia is just beside herself. Please, let us know you're okay. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about the money. My only point of contact with that side of the family was my grandson, Leo. He was 17, a quiet, intelligent boy with Richard's eyes and none of his parents' avarice. He called me, his voice hesitant. Grandma, are you okay? Mum's acting crazy. I'm fine, sweetheart, I told him, the ice in my voice melting slightly for him. Just taking some time for myself. She said you had a fight about the gallery. Your mother and I have a difference of opinion on what it means to build a legacy, Leo. That's all. Are you coming to the opening? The question hung in the air. I wouldn't miss it for the world, I said. The night of the grand opening was a spectacle of borrowed glamour. The South End street was lined with black cars. Paparazzi bulbs flashed as Boston's so-called elite strutted into the gleaming marble and glass facade of Gallery Amelia. Amelia had gotten her way, for now. She had clearly convinced her vendors to wait for payment until after the opening, promising them a windfall of publicity and a final payment from the imminent trust disbursement. I arrived deliberately late. I wore a simple, elegant black dress and Richard's emeralds. No coat, despite the autumn chill. I wanted them to see me coming. As I stepped out of the car, a hush fell over the small crowd still milling outside. My presence was unexpected. Robert, my driver, simply said, "Break a leg, Mrs. Vance," with a slight, knowing smile. Walking in felt like entering a theatre for the final act of a play I had written. The gallery was beautiful, I had to admit. Cavernous white walls, dramatic lighting, and frankly ridiculous art. One piece was literally a pile of discarded shoes, spray-painted gold. Guests held champagne flutes and made intelligent-sounding noises. Amelia and Liam spotted me instantly. Their faces were a comical mixture of panic and relief. They rushed over, their smiles stretched thin as tightropes. "Mother, you came," Amelia chirped, kissing the air beside my cheek. "I was so worried. You look wonderful." "Hello, Amelia." "Liam," I said, my voice calm and cool. "You've certainly made a statement." "Only the best, Eleanor," Liam boomed, clapping a hand on my shoulder. I resisted the urge to flinch away. "All thanks to your incredible generosity. We were just about to give the opening remarks. Amelia wants to dedicate the gallery to you." The irony was so thick, I could have choked on it. "How fitting," I said. They led me through the throng. People greeted me with deference and curiosity. I was still Eleanor Vance, the matriarch. They had no idea the ground beneath their feet was about to give way. Amelia stood on a small raised platform, a microphone in her hand, beaming like a queen. Liam stood proudly beside her. "Welcome, everyone," she began, her voice echoing slightly in the vast space. "Welcome to Gallery Amelia. This has been a dream of mine for so long, a dream of bringing a bold new vision for art to Boston. And I couldn't have done it without the support of one incredible person. A woman of vision, of strength, and of unparalleled generosity. My mother, Eleanor Vance." A smattering of polite applause. Amelia gestured for me to stand. I remained seated on a bench near the back. Her smile faltered for a second before she recovered. "My mother taught me that a legacy isn't just about what you leave behind, but about what you build in the present." She was laying it on thick, a final, desperate appeal for the funding she believed this public display would unlock. And so it is with the deepest love and gratitude that I dedicate this gallery, this legacy, to her. That was my cue. As she blew a theatrical kiss in my direction, 2 men in sharp suits, led by Arthur, entered the gallery. They were not guests. They were a fire marshal and a sheriff's deputy. Simultaneously, several other well-dressed individuals who had been mingling with the crowd began to move. They were not art lovers. They were process servers. The fire marshal walked directly to the lead contractor. "Sir, we have a report of significant building code violations and unpaid permits. I'm shutting this site down pending a full inspection." One of the servers approached the head of the catering company. "You've been served," he said, handing him a folder. "Notice of default from your primary creditor." Another server found the chief of security. Notice of asset seizure for non-payment of services. Chaos began to ripple through the room. Amelia's face went from triumph to confusion to horror in the space of 10 seconds. Then, the main event. Arthur Pendleton, my loyal Arthur, walked up to the platform and took the second microphone. "May I have your attention, please?" His baritone voice cut through the rising murmur. "There seems to be some confusion regarding the financial standing of this establishment." Amelia stared at him, aghast. "Arthur, what is the meaning of this?" "On behalf of my client," Arthur announced, his voice booming, "the owner of this building and the primary lien holder on all assets and debts associated with Gallery Amelia, I am here to serve notice that your lease has been terminated for fraudulent representation and your assets are hereby frozen. Amelia looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. Your client? What are you talking about? My mother? Your mother, I said, finally rising and walking towards the stage, my heels clicking on the very Italian marble she so desperately wanted, is standing right here. I took the microphone from Arthur's hand. The room was dead silent. Every eye was on me. I looked directly at my daughter. Her face was a mask of disbelief. You spoke of legacy, Amelia, I began, my voice clear and steady, amplified throughout the cavernous space. My husband and I built a legacy of integrity, hard work, and honor. We created a trust to foster those values. You saw it as your personal piggy bank, a means to fund a lifestyle you didn't earn, and a monument to your own vanity. I let that sink in. I saw Liam's face drain of all color. He was starting to understand. 6 weeks ago, on my 70th birthday, my daughter gave me a gift, the gift of her honest opinion. She told me the best gift I could give her would be to die. A collective gasp went through the crowd. The whispers turned into a shocked roar. People started backing away from Amelia as if she were contagious. I decided to grant her wish, in a manner of speaking, I continued, my eyes locked on hers. I decided to let the mother she knew die, the indulgent, forgiving mother who blindly funded your whims. In her place is simply the woman who signs the checks. And that woman has made a new investment. I gestured around the room. I own your supplier's debt. I own the caterer's contract. And as of 3 weeks ago, Amelia, I own this building. You are standing in my gallery. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. No sound came out. You wanted your inheritance, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, yet it carried the weight of a death sentence. You wanted me out of the way so you could have it all. Consider this an inheritance delivered early. The inheritance you truly deserve. A mountain of debt, a ruined reputation, and nothing, absolutely nothing. The Vance Family Legacy Trust is being dissolved as we speak. Its assets are being transferred to a new charitable foundation. You will not see another dime. That's when Liam, the ever-practical social climber, made his move. He saw the ship wasn't just sinking. It had already hit the ocean floor. He slowly, deliberately, took a step away from Amelia, then another. This is insane, he said, holding his hands up to the crowd. I had no idea about any of this. I was misled. This is between them. He looked at Amelia with pure, undisguised contempt, turned and walked briskly out of the gallery, disappearing into the night. He had abandoned her in the smouldering wreckage of her life in front of everyone. Amelia finally found her voice. It was a raw, guttural shriek of pure fury. You bitch! She screamed, lunging at me. The sheriff's deputy stepped between us instantly. Ma'am, I think it's time for you to leave. Leave! This is my gallery! She shrieked, tears of rage and humiliation streaming down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. Not anymore, it isn't, I said softly. They escorted her out, a raving, sobbing mess. The party was over. The guests fled as if from a plague house, whispering, gossiping, their faces filled with schadenfreude. This would be the talk of Boston for years. In the now empty, silent gallery, surrounded by absurdly expensive art, Arthur put a hand on my arm. Are you all right, Eleanor? I looked at the pile of golden shoes. I've never been better, Arthur. Let's go home. Karma, I've learned, is not a lightning bolt. It's a slow, grinding erosion. The fallout for Amelia was total. The story was everywhere, first in the society pages, then in the mainstream business press. Heiress disowned in spectacular fashion, one headline read. Her so-called friends, the ones who had toasted her success, wouldn't even answer her calls. She was a social pariah. Without my money, and now without Liam's meagre income, she was destitute. They had been living in a waterfront condo leased in the company's name. I had the lease terminated. Within a month, she was evicted. She had to sell her designer clothes and jewellery for a fraction of their worth just to afford a room in a dingy apartment in Revere. She tried to find work, but she had no skills beyond spending money and throwing parties. Her art history degree was useless without the capital to back it. I heard from a distant cousin that she took a job as a hostess in a North End restaurant, the kind of place she and Liam used to dine at. The humiliation must have been excruciating. About 6 months after that night, she called me. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious. Her voice was unrecognizable, thin, reedy, stripped of all its confidence. "Mother?" "Amelia." There was a long pause. I waited, wondering if this was it. The apology, the moment of remorse. "I need $5,000, she said, her voice cracking. "My car broke down and I'm going to be evicted if I don't make rent. Just $5,000, as a loan." The entitlement was still there, buried under a layer of desperation. She hadn't learned a thing. She still saw me as a bank, just one that was temporarily closed. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry for how it had turned out for her. "No," I said. "No? What do you mean, no? After everything you did to me, you can't even—" "What I did," I interrupted, my voice as cold as a winter tomb, "was give you a lesson in consequences, a lesson your father and I clearly failed to teach you. The tuition is the rest of your life. Do not call me again." I hung up the phone and had her number blocked. The story doesn't end there, though. Revenge, I found, is a hollow victory. It sets things right, but it doesn't fill the hole left behind. The gallery was liquidated. The building was sold. I funneled all the money and the entire Vance Trust into the new Richard and Eleanor Vance Foundation, dedicated to funding scholarships for bright, underprivileged students in engineering and business, the kind of driven young people Richard and I once were. My grandson Leo was the loose thread. He finished high school and, to his credit, chose to go to a state university, refusing to ask me for a cent. He got a part-time job and lived in the dorms. One day, he showed up at my house, unannounced. He was taller, broader. He had the look of a young man who was making his own way. We sat in the library, the same room where I'd planned his mother's downfall. "I just wanted to say," he started, struggling with the words. "What Mum said to you, it was unforgivable. And what you did to her. I think I understand." "I took away your inheritance, Leo," I told him directly. "You should know that. It's all going to the foundation." He nodded. "Good. I don't want it. I saw what that money did to my parents. It made them weak. Rotten." He looked at me, his gaze direct and honest. "I want to build something myself, like you and Grandpa did." In that moment, I saw him. Not just my grandson, but the true heir to our legacy. Not a legacy of money, but of spirit. "Your grandfather would be so proud of you," I said, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt genuine tears well in my eyes. Leo is on the board of the foundation now. He has a brilliant mind for numbers, just like I did, and Richard's innate decency. We work together, vetting applicants, guiding the future of the Vance legacy. We are building something new from the ashes of the old. Sometimes, late at night, I think of Amelia. I don't know where she is or what's become of her. I have no doubt she sees herself as a victim, a tragic princess cast out of her castle by a cruel queen. But the truth is, she was the architect of her own destruction. She held a life of immense privilege in her hands, and in a moment of pure, ugly greed, she threw it all away. She wished me dead. But I am very much alive. I have a purpose. I have my grandson. I have a legacy that will build futures, not just fund fantasies. Amelia is the one who is dead. the person she was, the life she had. It's all gone. And in the end, she has no one to blame but herself.